Turns on. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Tonight, we get to interview Dr. Ivan Misner, the founder and head of BNI. So, Ivan, just tell us a little about BNI, how you got started in BNI, and kind of where the idea came from.
Thanks, Andrew. It's great to be on your Google Hangout. I appreciate the invitation. I started BNI 30 years ago now. 30 years. I think the gray hair probably shows that it's been 30 years. But hey, you know what? I don't mind gray hair. I'm just glad I still have hair. So it's all good. 30 years ago, I started BNI. I was a management consultant. I was looking for referrals for my consulting practice, and I put together some people I trusted, and I felt they trusted me. We agreed to refer each other. We agreed to support one another. And we started meeting and passing referrals. We took only one person per profession. And interestingly enough, in the first month or so, someone came who couldn't join because of a conflict with one of the other, about 20, 24 people that were in the group. And she said, wow, this is great. I could get a ton of business out of a group like this. Would you help me start my own group so you could have two of these? Okay, so I haven't talked a lot about this publicly, but I actually said to her, no, this isn't what I do. I'm a business consultant. I don't run networks. And so, but she said, look, this is sort of consulting. You're helping me build my business. I said, okay, yeah, fair enough. I'll do it. So we opened up the second chapter. At the first meeting of the second chapter, we had 24 people come. 2 could not join because of a conflict with the other 22 people, and both of them said, wow, this is great. I could get a ton of business out of a group like this. Would you help me open up my own group? I was like, no, this isn't what I do. I'm a business consultant. And they made the same argument. I said, okay, and there you go. At the end of 1 year, Andrew, at the end of 1 year, we had 20 chapters.
Wow.
By accident. I mean, I'd like to tell you that I had this vision of an international organization with groups all over the world, but I just wanted some referrals. What I discovered at the end of that process was that business people are hungry for referrals, and we don't teach this in colleges and universities anywhere in the world. It's just not taught. And so business people are hungry for referrals. They want them. There was no vehicle to help them in a systematic way get them. And so I struck a chord that I hadn't expected. And it was at that point that I sat down it was between Christmas and New Year's of 1985. And I sat down and I said, okay, I need a plan. This is going to be a lot bigger than I anticipated. And I need a plan. And that was really the beginning of what, I mean, we'd started the year before, but that was really the beginning where I had a vision of what this could be. Today, BNI now has over 7,000 chapters.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's incredible. In more than 60 countries around the world. Last year, the organization passed 6.6 million referrals, and we generated 8.6 billion with a B, $8.6 billion worth of business for our members all around the world.
Oh, that's huge, and that's coming from just tripping over something. I was actually interviewing a local business owner the other day, and he said, I was about to shut down on what I was doing, then all of a sudden on the 6th page of Google, who goes to the 6th page of Google, right? He goes, this name just stuck out, and I called it, and boom, now everything is taken off. It's funny, the more I do these, how many business owners out there just fall backwards into the thing that really gets them what they're after. I mean, yeah, it's so fascinating.
I think you're right, and I certainly fell into this. I'm sort of an example of necessity being the mother of invention, and when that happens, when you have a need and there's no place that it can get filled, and so you fill it yourself, and then all of a sudden you see all kinds of other people gravitate to it, it's very important to recognize that. Not only did I not recognize it, I actually tried to talk people out of it. I mean, think about it. I said, no, that's not what I do. I'm a business consultant. And they talked me into it. And so it was after about 20 of those that I went, what the heck is going on? I really need to have a plan here. Otherwise, this is just going to get out from under me. You have to recognize an amazing thing when it falls into your lap.
Yes, the opportunity. You got to be cognizant to catch it. So in those 30 years, I'm sure you've seen your fair share of struggles in BNI and everything else. If you could pick probably your top 1 or 2 struggles you've come across, what would that be?
Well, geez, 30 years, the list would be very long. But I would say, if you want to make something scalable
Hmm.
as a business, then you have to have a package that you can hand people that trains them and teaches them on how to do it. So the first really, really big issue that we had was creating a program that was replicable, a package that we could hand to someone and say, here it is. Start on page 1 and do A. Go to page 2 and do B and C, and just walk them through it. And that was, and I'll tell you a book that really helped me back then that I still recommend to this day, and it was 30 years ago, is a book by Michael Gerber called The E-Myth. Which stands for the entrepreneurial myth, and I didn't know Michael then. I'm really honored to say he's a friend now. But one of the things he said was write everything down as though you plan on franchising your business, even if you never have any intention of ever franchising your business. Well, that's what I did. I wrote everything down as though I were going to do a franchise. But here's the interesting thing: 5-6 years into it, I had a manual. I had a complete manual. Soup to nuts, everything to startup regions. And I thought, wait a minute, maybe I could franchise. And did. So BNI is actually a franchise worldwide. We have franchises all over the world. And it happened because of the biggest problem I had. The solution to the biggest problem ended up becoming really part of the success of the organization, writing everything down.
Oh, that's huge. I know for myself, I tell all my clients, look, when you get ready to do something, write it down. I don't care what it is. Or take your phone, take a picture of it.
Right, that's a great idea. And one of the things, when I took a complaint, when a phone call came in and there was a problem, I wrote down how I handled it. And the reason I wrote it down how I handled it was so that the next person, because at some point I wanted someone else to be doing that job, and I had a whole manual then of handling customer complaints, at least an outline of how to handle customer complaints. And that became the blueprint for additional training when I brought people in to take over roles that I was doing.
Oh, I mean, I know for myself, it's one thing I sometimes struggle with, honestly, is I better write this down or take a picture. And I've had clients even just, look, you got your phone with you, go, yeah, well, take a video the next time you decide to install a tile floor on how to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's putting that system in place is huge, huge.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to ask you, because, I talk to a lot of folks, young in business, or even sometimes 5-10 years in business, who struggle with cash flow. Is that ever an issue with BNI in your business?
Are you kidding me? In the early days, cash flow was a huge problem, absolutely huge problem. And frankly, even later, just a few years ago, we did a project that was the biggest project in the history of the company. It's called BNI Connect, and we basically brought in an online data system that would connect our members globally. And, it's so funny because people think, oh, that's no big deal. Yeah, try and do it. Try and do it in 60 countries with about 2 or 3 dozen languages, where some documents go one direction, and in other countries they go the other direction, the way you read them. Some go up and down. Now take different currencies. Now take 60 different currencies or 50 different currencies, and then different tax rates. Some have VAT tax, some don't have VAT tax. All of these now deal with all these different languages and having them communicate with each other. Oh my goodness. And then some countries already had a system in place, and we had to make them stop using it and come to this, and this didn't have what they wanted. Oh my goodness. And of course, all of the work to do that, it was a multi-million-dollar project, and cash was really tight. So yeah, any company, any successful company has feast or famine, and BNI certainly has had both.
Oh wow! So how do you handle the famine? What are the strategies you do to get your mind right? Because I know for myself, when I'm in those famine modes, it's more of a mental. Business for me is more of the mental game, and how do we win that? So how do you win the mental game on those tight situations like that?
Well, look. First of all, if you're in a difficult situation like that, the worst thing you can do is give up. What happens is people get in a situation like that and they just stop engaging. because things are a problem and they don't want to engage. I always believed that if there's a problem, that brought focus to me. I put on blinders when I was having financial difficulties. Man, I put on blinders, and the only things I focused on were the things that were going to help me get out of that situation. Then I remembered, and I'm a real believer in this: you eat the elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah.
So if you have something that is gigantic and it seems unattainable to achieve, you just take it one piece at a time. And every day you just nick away at it a little bit more and a little bit more. And also when it comes to money and cash flow, it's real important to talk to your vendors. You know, when I had difficult times and I own a number of businesses. One, I don't think I've ever said this on an interview. I actually owned a trucking company at one point. If you can believe that. I did. It was 18-wheeler tractor trailers, which was hysterical because I couldn't drive them. I didn't know how to drive them, but I was a partner in the company, and oh my goodness, that company had such serious cash flow issues, and particularly with that business, we were really behind on a lot of bills. I never had anyone come after me, ever, and here's why: I would call them up, and I'd say, hey, look, Charlie, I'm having some difficulties in getting the cash in to the business. I know I owe you money. I need another 30 days. I promise you I will have a check to you on 30 days. If some crazy thing happens, you'll get another call like this. You won't have to call me again. I'll call you or you'll get that check. And by golly, I did everything in my power to make sure that on 28 days, they'd have that check. And so they knew when I called them that I was serious and I wasn't trying to put them off, and they knew they were going to get paid. Sometimes I would say something like, okay, so there was one time, or multiple times with that business, where I didn't have the money and I said I need 30 days, and then in 30 days I didn't have the money again. And so I said, look, I don't have the money again, but I'm sending you a check. It won't clear. But I promise you, I am working on this, and if another couple of weeks, you're going to have the check. It'll be in your hand. And the beauty of that is that if you write a bad check in a lot of states, then you got some serious trouble. So at least they had the check, and they knew that I was serious about paying them. I was so honest with my vendors about my situation that I never had a problem. They never sent me to collections, ever. Luckily, wow. I didn't have those kinds of problems with BNI, but I have had them in other businesses, and that's how I handled it.
Oh, that's wonderful. I know for myself, the first time I hit a cash flow crunch, I buried my head. I just did this. I didn't even look. I just buried my head, and I learned from that real quick. Boy, that doesn't work very well.
Doesn't work, boy. It makes people mad as heck with you.
And for me, that was like, and that this is for myself and my own life journey. Is sometimes you know stuff, but it takes the experience to actually understand what it is you know. And for me, that one was, that was a really dumb thing to do. And I called people up after and said, I'm sorry I did this. I did it wrong.
Yeah.
Start over.
Well, you know what? Telling them you were sorry you did that actually probably helped.
Yeah. Realizing a mistake and admitting it's always huge.
Yeah.
So
most business people have been in that situation. There are very few people that, strike gold on day one. And I'm certainly not one of them. I tell people I'm a 20-year overnight success.
Mm-hmm.
It took me 20 years to achieve any kind of real success in business. So most people have had tough situations, and when you talk to them and you're honest with them, they get that. I mean, they've been there, and so they understand where you're coming from. And most people are pretty cooperative. Banks maybe not so much, but other vendors are.
That's for sure. So in those 20 years, you've mentioned several strategies so far: managing cash flow, networking in there, paying attention to people. So if you could boil down the last 20 years in your multiple businesses, what would you say are the top 2 strategies someone should go out and just focus on that might work, or something? What have been your top 2 strategies in your business and life?
Well, so far? Okay. So can I give you more than 2?
If you want to, go for it.
I got a few. One would be, and ironically, before we started the interview, we were talking about this very issue.
Wish I would have recorded.
What's that?
Wish I had recorded what we were talking about before. It was good stuff.
Well, do what you love, and you'll love what you do.
Mm.
Too many people don't do what they love. Now, look, I get it where there are times in your life where you got to do what you got to do in order to get to do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that. However, at the same time, you need to be working on what you love to do, even if you're doing that part-time. But if you have an opportunity, you want to move towards doing what you love to do full-time as soon as possible, because you're just not going to be terribly successful doing something you don't like doing. So do what you love, and you'll love what you do. Next is, I'm a real believer that ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice.
Mm.
Ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. Man, when I started BNI, I had no idea how to network. I was clueless. I was. I didn't
That's funny, since you're known as the father of modern networking.
Yeah, well, I was making it up as I went. You know, I was 28. I was 28 years old. Okay, so here's another secret I'll tell you. When I started BNI, most all of the people who were in that first chapter were older than me, and they were virtually all more successful than me.
Mm.
I did that on purpose. I wanted to go to school on them. I figured these people, more successful than I am, they would, I mean, one had been in the insurance industry. When he came on board, he'd been in the insurance industry for 20 years. He ran an office. He was, basically the general manager of a pretty big insurance company. The other was a past CPA, a past controller for the city of Beverly Hills.
Oh, wow.
I mean, these people were pretty successful when I brought them into BNI, and I figured they knew how to network, and they knew how to build business through referrals. And so I brought them in so I could learn from them. What I discovered was they didn't know how to do it. That's why they joined. And so through trial and error, and you remember I said I wrote everything down. So I started writing down things that were really working. And those things ended up becoming my books. I've now written 20 books on most of them on networking or referral marketing. And so that comes from me writing things down that I see work. So back then I was on, and I'd like to think I'm still on fire, but I was ignorant as could be about how to network, but I was on fire. I was excited. I wanted to, I wanted to help change the world. And so I really believe that ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. The only thing that's better than ignorance on fire is knowledge on fire.
Yes.
But that takes time. Or it takes someone who will mentor you or help you, or someone who will coach you. You know, I'm a real believer in business coaches, and coaches can really help someone by mentoring and coaching them so that, and if they're on fire and they're being coached, boom, that's knowledge on fire.
Yes.
So here's, let me see, I got one or two more for you. Biggest mistake entrepreneurs make, number one, is they do the opposite of what I'm about to say. I believe you have to do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times. Business people, oh my goodness, they keep going after bright, shiny objects. They'll do something a few times and then they'll go, oh, that looks nice. Let me try that. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? There's something new. I think I'll try that. And so they're constantly doing something new, oftentimes not proven, sometimes recommended to them by somebody who's a total failure in business, but they recommend, whatever, and they go, yeah, okay, I'm going to try that, and I'm going to try this. And they do it a few times, of course it doesn't work, so then they're off to the next bright, shiny object.
Guilty as charged, I'll admit that one.
What's that?
I've done that. Guilty as charged, yep.
Yeah, you know what, I think most people have done that. Most people, I certainly did that until I understood it. In fact, I love this. When I do presentations on doing 6 things 1,000 times, I actually have this with me, and I'll say, don't get caught up by the bright shiny object. Stay away from the bright shiny object. So that's a big one. Do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times. I have been in business like a dog with a bone. I find something that either I have been trained works, or I observe, I've modeled somebody who's successful, or I've done something and it works really well, and then I do it 1,000 times over and over and over again. Really, really important. Okay, last one that I'll give you. I could give you more, but I'll give you one more. You have to have a larger vision. You got to create a big vision for your business. And I mean a vision statement. Even if you're a small business, there are people, that I've talked to, they're one-person operation. They're like, what do I need a vision for? Or I have one part-time employee. What do I need a vision for? I'll tell you why. Because if your business really takes off, if your business really, really takes off, and you get 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 employees, by the time you're there, you're going to be thinking, oh man, I wish I'd created a real vision statement for my company, because now I got 20 employees and they're all going in different directions.
Yep.
They're going after bright, shiny objects. So in BNI, our vision is really clear. It's one sentence. BNI is about changing the way the world does business. Mm-hmm. That's it. We do it through the philosophy of giver's gain, this idea that if I help you, you'll help me. We'll all do better as a result of it. And it's that vision that has carried this organization on for 30 years. How many companies do you know, Andrew? How many companies do you know that have had 30 years of consecutive growth? 30 years. Not 1 year was a down year for the organization. We had 30 years of consecutive growth. I don't know of very many.
I can't think of any offhand that I've come across. I know for Action Coach, ours is World Abundance for Business Re-Education. That's our vision. One of my clients, she runs a nonprofit, and she helps fight domestic violence. And I was talking to her in our coaching session the other day. I said, look, start with your org chart. If you don't have a vision, at least start with your org chart. Get a vision of where and how many people you want to have. And I said, whose name is going to go in most of those positions? She goes, well, I guess mine is. I said, you're right. Yep. So as we grow, and I said, once you know that destination, it's like driving. When you know where you're going, you get there a whole lot faster than if you don't. You don't know where you're going, you turn off the radio, like that can help you find your destination or something like that. You know
what? I used the same technique, and I'm pretty confident I originally got that idea out of Michael Gerber's E-Myth book. I'm pretty sure it was originally there, where he talked about creating an organization chart and put your name in every one of the boxes where you're doing stuff, and if you have any employees, put their names in there. And I did that. My biggest regret, I think, on that is I didn't keep the org chart. I would kill. I'd have that thing framed and put on a wall if I'd have kept it. So if you're listening to this interview and you think, wow, that's a really interesting idea. I want to do an org chart of where I'm going to be in 5 years, and I'm going to put my name in and the names of the other people. Keep that org chart, because someday if you're successful, you're going to want to frame that and put it up on your wall.
Oh, wow. I know the most interesting org chart I ever got back from a client was one. I mean, I fussed at him for about 2 weeks to do this. Finally, he broke down and says, fine, I'll do it, just to get you off my back. So he sent me a picture of this poster board with crayon. He took his daughter's crayons and drew it out in crayon on this poster board. He's a web designer, so it fits for him. And I said, man, that's the most beautiful org chart I've seen right there, dude. I love it.
That's
now
funny.
Go get busy on it.
That's funny.
It is. So just thinking of life a little bit here. If you could boil down your just life experience into 1 or 2 life strategies, because my thought is a business will never outgrow its owner. You see those businesses that are stagnant, and I say, well, the owner quit growing, because a business can't outgrow the owner, in my opinion. How do you keep yourself growing? What are a couple life strategies to keep you growing and focused on just becoming all Dr. Ivan Misner can be?
Well, a couple of things. First, I think that it's important for people to understand that the secret to success without hard work is still a secret. It just doesn't exist. I mean, if it does, please share it with me, because I don't know what it is. It takes hard work, and I think you have to understand that going into it. Now, on the other hand, if you're doing what you love, the hard work is not so bad. It doesn't feel like it. From somebody from the outside will think, whoa, man, that person works hard. You may not feel like you're working hard because you're loving what you do. I get that, but it does take hard work. And I think it's very important that we as business professionals immerse and engage in a culture of learning. I think entrepreneurs pay lip service to education. Now, you and I are singing to the choir right now, because the people that are watching this interview are the people who are immersed. They are engaged in learning, or else they wouldn't be watching this. But it's the people who aren't watching it that need it the most. And I think I'm a lifelong learner. I think you've got to constantly be sharpening your tools if you want to be successful in business.
Oh, that's huge. I require my clients to read books all the time. One of my favorite books, talking to networking, is Networking Like a Pro.
Hey, thank you.
You want to start networking? Here's your book. Read this one. It'll get you started and get you at least the fundamental basics of how to go about doing it right.
Good. Well, you'll see. It's right there on the back of my. It's on my bookshelf right there.
Yeah, and it's on my bookshelf right up there as well.
Excellent.
One of my favorite in the E-Myth. I always have clients read the E-Myth. You know, you mentioned that several times. I've read it a couple times. It's a fantastic book. I love it. I love it.
Michael's a good man, and I've had a chance to get to know him over the last few years. He's a good man, and he walks the talk. He does what he talks about.
Oh yeah. One of the things I've taken away is, you know, I think I might go after some bigger names for my interview series. Because why not? It's fun. I enjoy it. So, any parting words of wisdom before we sign off tonight?
Well, you know, I run the world's largest networking organization. We talked about that, and I think I'd like to maybe just share a little bit about networking and maybe some words of wisdom in terms of networking.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things I've learned in the last 30 years of running the largest face-to-face networking organization is that it's not what you know or who you know. You know the expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's what you know or who you know. It's how well you know each other that really counts.
Yeah.
Because networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. It's about cultivating relationships with other business professionals. And I think it's one of the things that people just don't get, or they don't really understand fully. And so most people tend to use networking as a face-to-face cold calling opportunity. Hi, Andrew, my name's Ivan, let's do business. Mm-hmm. And instead of building any kind of relationship, and a lot of people will say, you know, it never hurts to ask for the referral, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. It does hurt to ask, because when you give a referral, you give a little of your reputation away. If it's a good referral, it enhances your reputation, but if it's a bad referral, it hurts your reputation. So it's all about building relationships. Build the relationships, and you build your network.
Oh, wonderful piece of advice. I know I've handed out one bad referral in my time. It was a lawyer. She stood my client. I mean, it was a closed deal for her. She stood him up, didn't even give him the courtesy of lame excuse. I took her cards, went straight to the trash. I said, well, you're done.
Absolutely.
And I'd met with her about 2-3 times before that, so I'd known her pretty well, and you know, I risked it. And they told me she stood him up, and I'm like, whoa, well, she's not getting any more referrals. Sorry about that.
Right.
Put mud on my face. I hated it.
Right. And that's it. And you want to make sure that you're referring people that you know and trust.
Yeah. Yeah. Ivan, thank you so much for your time. I know it's going to help out a lot of business owners in the area and everyone else who watches it on YouTube. I am a member of BNI myself. I know I mentioned that to you earlier. So if you are looking for a good networking organization, I can recommend BNI. I enjoy it. Been a member for 3 years now. It's a good one. And find your chapter and visit. I always tell everybody when they visit our chapter, I tell everybody, visit all of them. Find the chapter that fits you the best so it'll work better for you. I don't care if it's ours or somebody else's. Go to all of them. Visit. Have fun.
Well, I would advise that you go to one until you find one that resonates with you, rather than go to a whole bunch. Find one, and when those people really resonate with you, that's the one that you want to pick and participate in. If your viewers want information on BNI, they can go to bni.com. A lot of information there. Yeah. Also, I have a blog. That your viewers might be interested in. A lot of free stuff up there. The blog name is right there on the screen, ivanmisner.com. That's M-I-S-N-E-R, ivanmisner.com.
And for everyone who watches this on YouTube, those links will be down in the description, so feel free to click through on those and everything else. Again, Ivan, thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it.
My pleasure.